All right, folks, we are getting ready to go fully live. We are getting things started, so as you come in, do me a favor, say hi in the chat. It'll be a couple of minutes before we get the things going officially. In the meantime, enjoy these few minutes of behind the scenes as I'm getting things ready, which is mostly going to look like me clicking on things because, hey, guess what? Someone didn't think that as soon as you started OBS, it was going to start streaming. Oh well. What's up, Leoben Wolf? Good to have you in here. I know, this makes for amazing television. Theoretically, I could have turned everything off and just kept just had a 5 second stream. But you know what? Those of you who showed up early, you get to see the behind the scenes stuff, as thrilling as it is. And also hear Mr. Senior Kitty as he's being a bit of a diva and getting ready to probably jump in the middle of this. All right, as people are starting to stream into the chat, as it were, everybody please be sure to say hi, let everybody know that you're here, and we will be getting started in just a couple of minutes. And hopefully Mr. Senior Kitty is not going to be too much of a pain in the butt during all of this. But you know how it goes, wish on one hand, etc., etc. All right, we are officially live. We are officially starting. For those of you who showed up early, you got 7 minutes of me setting things up because someone doesn't necessarily know how OBS works. As it is, sorry for the boredom. We are letting people come in and we are going to get this conversation going. It is going to be a fun time. We are going to be talking about what it takes to keep keep your love and relationships alive even during quarantine. In the meantime, as you all join, be sure to share this around. Be sure to let people know that this is happening so they can join us right now. And then, yeah, we are going to start this party off. Yes, buddy, we all hear you. He's going to be a guest during all of this. All right. You going to be good? All right, as we are all trickling in, everybody be sure to say hi. Let me know you're in the chat. And we are good to go. Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from DrNerdLove.com, brought to you by my generous patrons at Patreon.com. And thank you all so much for joining me today for this live workshop. Now, if you've seen my previous workshops, this is going to be pretty much the same in format. I'm going to be talking for a bit, and then I will be taking your questions, and then at the end, I'm going to mention some of the products and services that I offer. It's all going to be relevant because we're going to be talking about keeping your relationships alive and healthy. So, do me a huge favor, if you make it all the way to the end, be sure to check out my books, be sure to check out some of the services I offer. You don't have to, it is just a thing that I would appreciate. And if you haven't seen my previous workshops, then I strongly suggest that you do, especially when we're done, to go back and watch those, because a lot of what we're going to be talking about today builds on things that we covered in my previous workshops. Now, as everyone's getting in, hi, how's it going? Be sure to say hi in the chat. So, one of the things that we don't think of very much when we think of the COVID-19 crisis is how much it affects our relationships. Not just for single people or relationships that are just starting out, but for established long-term couples. Couples quarantined together are starting to feel the strain of life under quarantine. There is, as it turns out, such a thing as too much together, even for the strongest or the happiest couples. In fact, a lot of advice columnists and dating coaches out there, including me, are getting deluged with letters about relationships that are starting to crack or even fall apart under the stress of self-isolation. In China, divorce rates skyrocketed once the quarantine was lifted. We don't want that to happen to you, because all of this, all the problems that people are having in their relationships right now while they're under self-isolation goes beyond simple cabin fever. Stress reveals the flaws in relationships, ones that people are very rarely aware of before the crisis strikes. Relationships are rarely tested in the ways that they are being tested right now. The only things that come close to the moment that we're having right now include sudden and unexpected financial hardship, health problems, including mental health, or the sudden tragic loss of a loved one or family member. These are events that can shatter and test relationships that may have seemed healthy or strong on the surface, but when push came to shove, they weren't able to make it when crisis hit. And part of that is because it is very easy to be happy when things are going well, or even when only one partner is affected. People tend to think of the hard times and what it's like to have a partner who is going to take care of them as a time when they're sick or laid up or unable to work, and they're imagining that their partner is going to be picking up the slack, taking care of them, maybe making kind of a fun little games like, oh, my girlfriend is so caring and nurturing, she's going to take care of me while I'm sick. What they rarely think about are the times when everybody is in the same bad place. Both parts of the couple are sick at the same time, but everybody is dealing with loss. Everybody is dealing with sudden financial hardship. These are the times when you find out what your relationship is actually made of. And honestly, even if we go to the idea of one partner taking care of the other, it can have its appeal only as long as it's temporary and short-term, and if then. A lot of people have discovered that their partner expects them to carry all of the loads during times of trouble, including quarantine, effectively turning them into quarantine mommy and daddy, maid, servants, and unlicensed therapist. That is going to break a lot of relationships. Part of what makes the coronavirus's pandemic's effects on relationships so insidious is that at first, it all seems easy. People are in the honeymoon period where it feels romantic to be sequestered with your partner. It's kind of like, oh, we've got this little staycation that we have to go on. Hey, guess what? It's time to focus on the relationship. It's time to be romantic. It's time to do all the cute, fun little things that we always said that we were going to do if we ever just had nothing to do but spend time with each other. As it turns out, that fades a lot sooner than you would think. Conflict inevitably arises because you're two, or in some cases more, individuals with wants and needs and personalities, and those inevitably clash with one another. No matter who you are, no matter who you're dating, there are many, many little things that you or your partner can and do that drive each other crazy. Especially when you're cooped up together and in each other's faces 24/7 with little to no ability to get away, to get some space, or to get some distance. Plus, there's the fact that everybody deals with crises and stress and emotional fatigue differently. One person may get super horny. Another person may become anhedonic and discover that they get no pleasure from anything. One person may hyper-focus on work or productivity, almost to the point of exclusion of everything else, while another may find it difficult to focus on literally anything. And that's before we get into the quarantines, and that's before we get into the extroverts like me who are forced into quarantine, and the introverts who live with them. I see more people are coming in. Thank you all for saying hi. It's really good to see you all here. And I know a lot of you have questions. Part of the format of this is that we will take questions when we get to the end. So do me a huge favor. Save your questions for the end of the broadcast. I will tell you when it's time to give them so I don't have to scroll up to try to find them and waste even more time. Cool? Cool. Mr. Kitty. As it turns out, sexual chemistry doesn't guarantee that you're going to be good roommates. And in an ideal world, you would want to make sure that you and your partner have more in common than just being really hot for each other. Being able to live together as a couple, or even just as roommates, is a skill that requires compatible personalities, goals, outlooks, and values. But it can be difficult to plan for events like this, a once-in-a-generation event. You have to be able to deal with the reality on the ground as it currently exists. So you may be with a partner who is driving you crazy, who you're discovering has quirks or flaws that seemed endearing when the two of you didn't feel stuck with one another, but now is getting on your last nerve. This is why keeping your relationship strong and healthy ultimately depends on understanding that these are not normal times. Trying to carry on as though things were the same pre-social distancing is a mistake that is only going to frustrate you and your partner and anyone else living with you. You have to adapt to the circumstances, and that includes adapting your relationship. You have to be flexible, you have to be understanding, you have to be forgiving, and above all else, you have to be kind. But kindness, flexibility, and being forgiving do not mean that you don't have boundaries and limits. You need to have those as well. It does not do you any good to be so flexible and so compromising that you sacrifice your own emotional well-being in the name of fixing the relationship. And that is why I am giving you these tips to help you survive living under self-isolation with your sanity and your relationship intact. And straight up, these are going to be mostly focusing on couples who are currently living together. Now, some of this will also apply to folks who are in now de facto long-distance relationships, even if they live in the same city. But folks who aren't quarantined with their partner should also check out my previous workshop on dating under COVID-19, as well as my Ask Dr. NerdLove episode about making long-distance relationships work. Bobo, yes, I do read the chat. I keep an eye on it. Shepard Chandler, thanks for the shirt. It's one of my favorites, and I really hope nothing ever happens to it because honestly, I can't replace this stupid thing. All right, so tip number 1. Start saving your relationship by managing your expectations. Now is not the time to expect your ideal or perfect relationship. Now is the time for doing what it takes to make it through this crisis. And that means flexibility, adaptability, and compromise are going to be crucial. You're not going to be able to get everything that you hope for, especially right now. There will be times when you're going to have to do what is effectively emotional triage and decide what actually needs to be dealt with and what you can let go of until things are stable again. This isn't a case of neglecting the relationship. It's a case of understanding that some things may have to go by the wayside because of the unique circumstances that we are in. Just as importantly, however, you can't rely on unspoken expectations. If you and your partner want to make it through quarantine with your relationship intact, you need to make sure that you are both on the same page, which is why you should be talking things out now. What are you going to need from your partner, and what will they need from you? And just as importantly, what will you be able to give, and what won't you be able to give right now? The same goes for them. What are their limits going to be? What are their capabilities going to be? What will be the responsibilities of the relationship, of the house, and who will manage them? How will they be divided? How are you going to handle things like spending and finances, especially if only one of you is earning right now? This is all important to talk out because everyone has a limited amount of emotional bandwidth, and it is not going to be perfectly equal. Making arrangements now makes it easier to work around everybody's capabilities and managing expectations instead of getting angry that somebody isn't doing what you feel like they should be able to. And this goes vice versa as well. It does no good for your partner to ask for what you know that you can't deliver and get upset for things that you simply are incapable of doing right now. You need to talk it out now and ideally write it all down to make sure that you both know you're on the same page. But you also have to be willing to revisit these agreements because they are not set in stone. The agreements that you make are relevant to the circumstances as they are now. You're going to have to adjust as circumstances change because they will. And if you're going to discover that sometimes you're capable of more than you thought you were, or that your limits have changed and that they are now lower than you or your partner thought they might have been. Tip number 2, you need to have structure for your life. Unless both of you already work from home, the odds are that you both had very different daily schedules and daily routines surrounding work, and those routines may conflict with one another when you're both trying to do them at the same time in the same space. And this is especially true if one of you is currently furloughed or unemployed and the other is currently working from home. Having structure helps mitigate this. By keeping a schedule, you're not only adding order to the day, but you're providing boundaries on what you do and what you can be called on to do at particular times. This is crucial if one or both of you are working from home. When you're working from home and the other person is not used to it, it is very easy to forget that no, from certain hours, you or your partner are still on the job, and there are times that you can't be called away from it. And incidentally, having a schedule and having structure can be especially important for couples with children because kids need even more structure than adults do. What you want to do is keep working hours. If one or both of you are working from home, keep working hours on the days that you are actually expected to be at work, whether it is on Zoom calls, whether it is just logging into the database, whatever. Keep working hours. From X time in the morning to Y time in the afternoon, treat it as though you are at work. And that means no interruptions or chores or conversations except for scheduled breaks or emergencies. If something is not on fire or somebody isn't bleeding out, then your partner needs to be able to handle it on their own because you are at work. This also means respecting the working partner's need to avoid distractions. It is really hard for one person to work while the other person is, say, vacuuming or doing an exercise routine from a DVD, a YouTube video, even a live class on Zoom, what have you. Now, ideally, as all this is going on, you would have 2 separate workspaces. For example, one person works in the kitchen while the other works in the bedroom with the door closed. If you don't have the room for this, if you don't have the luxury or the space, then what you want to do is try to introduce artificial boundaries, such as one of you works at the kitchen table, one of you works on the couch. Hell, I know some people who work from home who basically lock themselves into the bathroom and write from there. Other things you can do are have noise-canceling headphones on that minimize distractions and allow for both of you to focus. And incidentally, if one of you wants to watch TV and the other one has to work, or later on in the evening, if one of you needs your shows, your movies, the other one wants to read or play a video game, headphones that connect to whatever it is that you're paying attention to and lock the sound to you are going to save your relationship in ways that you do not understand yet. You need to figure out what you need to be most effective at work and then make arrangements and compromises from there. At the same time, you need to be as respectful of your partner's boundaries and needs as you would want them to be of yours. If you get off work before your partner does and they're still working or they're called to be in the office late, you need to respect that and treat it as though they are physically not there with you. And incidentally, here's one weird trick that a lot of us who work from home already know about. Have a commute to work. Even if it's just to literally go outside, walk around the block, and then come back in and get started. And then you want to have that same commute after work is done. Repeat the process, even in reverse if you really feel like getting fancy with it. What this does is this allows you to segment your headspace. You're able to go from your home headspace to a work headspace and vice versa, instead of having those moments where you are sitting at the computer going like, okay, I need to get started. I need to get going. My attention span is for shit. I really would rather be playing Animal Crossing. Having that conscious divide where you actually go out a door makes it much easier to split where your attention is and what your feelings are at that moment and then change it back. This, incidentally, is why I'm convinced a lot of writers are alcoholics, because if you're working from home, going to the bar, socializing, and then coming back is how you get out of work mode. It's a very good way of getting out of work mode, I should say. All right, everyone following along? Cool. Tip number 3, be respectful of your feelings. One of the things that trips people up and causes conflicts where there don't necessarily need to be any is that they often feel like they're experiencing this crisis wrong. They may not be as worried as other people, or they may be more worried than other folks. They may even be upset about the fact that they're not more upset. And you know what? That's all valid. There is no right way to feel about this. As I've said before, this is a completely unprecedented situation, and everybody is going to feel about it and deal with it differently and react to it differently. And the thing that you need to keep in mind is that how you feel is how you feel, and the way that you feel is right for you. There is no wrong way to feel about this crisis. You need to give yourself and your partner room to feel your feels without judgment. You want to be aware of your emotions and accepting of them, because it is important. They're going to leak out in ways that you don't expect. A lot of conflicts in relationships, especially in times of stress or crisis, aren't about something the partner is doing or a flaw in the relationship or something that actually needs to be addressed. A lot of times, what is going on is an externalization and interpersonalizing an internal issue, projecting it onto somebody else. You're feeling, for example, anxiety, and it's making you upset, and it's causing you to lash out. You are picking a fight because you're afraid or upset. And sometimes we do that because we pick fights. We get angry at someone for no reason, for no real reason, because, for example, we feel helpless. And starting a fight feels like it may be negative, it may be unpleasant, it may be counterproductive, but at least it's something that we can control. Maybe you've noticed yourself doing this. Maybe you've noticed a family member who does this, that when they get angry, when they get upset, when they get scared, when they get tense, when they get stressed, they get prickly and snappish and lash out over the most petty minor things. That's what's going on here. You want to be as aware of those moments as possible, and if you have them, those tendencies to do this, so that you can either find ways to rein them in or to resolve them yourself in a productive manner. If you want your relationship to survive this, you need to follow NerdLove rule number 2, handle thine own shit. Right now, you cannot expect your partner to handle your emotions for you or to be your therapist. They will support you as best they can, and we will talk about this in a second. But they also have their own struggles, and it is not fair to ask them to help manage and resolve yours too, just as you wouldn't want them to demand that you handle their problems at a time when you don't have the emotional bandwidth or the energy or the spoons or the spell slots, whatever you want to call it. However, you also need to be willing to explicitly ask for what you need from somebody when you need it. whether it is a time for someone to listen with a sympathetic ear, or whether it is time to find an actual solution. Sometimes when we talk to our partners and we complain or we gripe, what we want is someone to rub our shoulders and say, "You're right, that sucks, poor baby." Other times we want an actual solution. And it is very frustrating when somebody who wants a solution is getting sympathy, and somebody who wants tea and sympathy is getting somebody who's saying, "Oh, here's what you need to do." This is especially a trait that tends to be divided between men and women, where men have been socialized to, "Oh, you're having a problem. My goal and my job is to help you fix it." That is not always what our partners need. And if that is not a thing that you need, then you need to be willing to say so. If all you want is, "I want you to let me vent for a little bit," then you need to be sure to let them know. If there is some way that your partner can support you, then tell them specifically how they can do that. And by that same token, ask your partner for specifics on how you can support them when they need it. Using your words and asking for what you need is going to model the behavior that you also want from them. By showing your willingness to ask and use your words and say exactly what it is that you want or what it is that you need, you're showing them that they can and should feel empowered to ask for what they need from you. And if you aren't sure, then say those words exactly. What do you need from me specifically? Be detailed. It's okay. But above everything else, while this is going on, do yourself and your partner a favor. Err on the side of kindness. Believe what your partner tells you that they need or that they can't provide. Don't press them for something that they aren't capable of. Because sometimes the need to just grit your teeth and ride out the crisis is going to have to take priority over having a perfect relationship. There will be times when you're going to just have to let shit go in the name of being a good and caring partner and roommate, even if that comes at the cost of the romantic side of things during this crisis. It is much easier to re-up the romance or rekindle the spark when you haven't curdled the relationship by creating resentment and by making it clear that the two of you aren't able to live together. Oh, cool. There we go. Sorry, a bit of a problem on my end. Getting back to it. Gotta love it when it's live. Tip number 4. You do you by focusing on what you can control. This can sound selfish, but you need to focus on yourself and your own needs first. Part of making a relationship work in times of crisis is to not lose track of the fact that you're both individuals with different needs, and neglecting your own needs makes it harder for you to be a good partner. This is why we say you need to put on your own oxygen mask first before helping other people with theirs. And that's why if your needs conflict with your partner's needs, then you need to find a way to fulfill your needs without your partner's involvement. Sometimes, and this is why sometimes doing things on your own is going to be a better solution than trying to do everything with your partner or your family, your roommates, whatever, and making it all a group activity. You both are going to have different needs for time and space to yourselves. You want to make sure that you make time to do the things that you need to stay healthy, physically and emotionally. And that can include physical things like exercise, what you want, and watching what you eat. But at the same time, the emotional side of staying emotionally healthy means maybe you're going to eat something that isn't necessarily the healthiest. You may want comfort food. You may want that drink. Emotional health will also include what you decide to wear that day, what you're going to do for entertainment, things that you're going to do to wind down and relax and de-stress. Do the things that make you comfortable, that make it easier for you right now, as long as it doesn't cause problems for your partner. This is another area where compromise and flexibility is going to be important. If you need your comfort food and your partner doesn't want it, they're eating differently, they're trying to make a point of eating healthy, or other way around, you're trying to eat very healthy, maybe you're gone keto for whatever reason, and your partner doesn't. There is honestly nothing wrong with eating separate meals or at different times, cooking at times while the other person does their own thing. While under normal circumstances, we've gotten used to all right, couples got to eat together. Sometimes what you need is a time where everybody fends for themselves, because that is what you both need. What you need in terms of food and the time when you want to have it is going to differ from the time when your partner needs it, and that's okay. Give your partner that same right to focus on their needs first, too. Trying to control what they do, or they're trying to control what you do, or trying for either of you to plan everything around both of you doing it all together at the same time is ultimately how you create resentment at a point when neither of you are working at 100% capacity or in normal circumstances. Again, this is not normal circumstances. Now, all of this does not mean that you abdicate your mutual responsibilities to one another, or that you can load one person with all the work. What it does mean is that you need to be flexible with one another and find compromises, even if the compromise means that it is not going to be a perfectly even division of time, labor, or effort. Whoever is handling the majority of responsibilities will shift and change over time as circumstances change, as your emotional availability and your mental availability changes. There will be days when you're going to have more strength, more spoons, more bandwidth than your partner will. There will be days when your partner has more strength, spoons, bandwidth, what have you. It is important that the two of you be flexible and able to shift as needed. Just as importantly, have the conversations about what you need in that moment. You may need more space than they do. They may need more time to have phone calls with friends or virtual happy hours with people than you do, and that's okay. It is important for both of you to recognize that different needs for time together and time apart is not personal. Whether you need if you need more time to yourself or more time with other people, that is not a comment on your relationship. If your partner needs more time talking to folks who aren't you, again, that's not about you. It is not personal. It is just a reaction to the circumstances and the needs they have in that moment. You need to, it is very easy to feel resentment about that, or to feel that they are snubbing you. They aren't. This isn't that they don't love you or they don't care. It's that sometimes what you need are just talking to somebody that you haven't been with 24/7. As extroverts and introverts have both discovered, sometimes your spouse or partner doesn't count as company. And that goes both ways. Now, tip number 5 is an important one. Fight the right way. Because being under self-isolation is a lot like Fight Club. You're going to fight. And I can tell some of you are like, oh, great, he's talking about Fight Club again. Hi, you must be new here. Welcome to Fightcast, where everything comes back to Fight Club eventually. Here's the thing. Conflict is inevitable. Resolving it depends on fighting in ways that are constructive, not destructive. Which is why the first rule of fighting the right way is to calm yourself down. Notice very carefully that I said calm yourself down. Do not, and I cannot stress this enough, do not tell your partner to calm down. Not only does this not work, it usually has the opposite effect and only makes things worse. No good comes out of fighting or conflict when you're both angry. You're both much more likely to fight to wound rather than to fight to fix things, and you end up saying things in the heat of the moment that you're going to wish that you hadn't said. It may be something that you feel emotionally, it may be an emotional truth, but it is not a thing that needed to be said, and all it did was cause pain where no pain was necessary. That is why I strongly suggest when you feel a fight building, then one or both of you need to go on a walk in separate directions to cool down. This gives you space to breathe and to not let your anger or your frustration bubble over or to be as immediate. Now, this doesn't mean that you just immediately get up and walk out the door. You have to lay down a line that says, you know what? I am not going to do this right now. I need to calm down. I'm going to go for a walk. We will deal with this when I get back in X minutes. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Be specific. Let them know exactly what it is you're doing, not that you're just leaving. Then, do yourself a favor. Go and walk around the block a couple of times. Breathe slowly and deeply. Inhaling on the count of 4, holding your breath for a count of 4, exhaling for a count of 4. This helps calm your heart rate, and when you lower your heart rate, you make yourself less angry and less in the moment. You're less excited. And that's going to be important because what you want to do is focus on being calm and being ready to handle this without anger or frustration getting in the way. When you get back, focus on the issue that is causing the problem, not the emotions. Things may feel unfair. You may feel that you're being accused or not being heard. You may feel that something is not necessarily your fault. Focusing on blame isn't going to fix things. The only thing that will fix things is to focus on the problem. But if you're going to do that, make sure you're focusing on the actual problem, which may not be what you're initially fighting about. Sometimes what you're fighting about is often a symptom, not the cause. The classic example is fighting about who does or doesn't do the dishes, or who does or doesn't do the housework. It is a lot of times not about who's doing the dishes or who isn't doing the dishes. What it really is about feeling underappreciated or taken for granted. There was a Jennifer Aniston and movie, I forget for the life of me what it was called, but it has a moment where she says, I want you to want to do the dishes, and actor whose name is currently escaping me says, why would I want to do the dishes? And that is a classic example of not getting what the underlying issue is. The issue wasn't the dishes. It wasn't even wanting to do housework. It was about her feeling like her partner is treating her like an equal, not as a maid. Because especially right now, people feel like they are being treated by their partner as their pandemic maid or pandemic mommy or pandemic daddy. So, stop fighting, then solve the problem. Remember, working on whatever the problem is, whether it is the surface issue or an underlying one, needs to be collaboration, not conflict. And part of understanding what it means for it to be collaboration, not conflict, is decide for yourself, is this a hill that you're willing to die on? If it isn't, and think carefully about this, then it is better to give ground in the name of being a good partner and roommate than it is to be right. Being right is extremely cold comfort when it also ruins your relationship in the process. Sometimes you just have to make sacrifices in the name of making things better, even if it pricks your ego a little bit. Another key to ending the fight so that you can work on the problem, give a meaningful apology that owns your role. You want to say, I'm sorry that I did X and upset you, not I'm sorry that you were upset. The last thing that you want in any apology is to use the passive voice. All right. Everyone's still good? We got everyone staying along with all of this? And I may have and you know what? You may have noticed how all of the really hard or unpleasant stuff came first. That's because that's for a reason. I focused on the harder things, the things that are harder to accomplish, because these are going to be the things that cause the most conflict down the line. It is much easier to be romantic or sweet when you aren't doing the things that create fissures or push the two of you apart or exacerbate the problems that you were already having. It's like triage. The first thing you want to do is stop the bleeding. But all that was about making sure that you don't break the relationship. Here's how you strengthen it with tip number 6. Set aside time for the two of you to communicate your feelings to one another. One of the most important things that you can do right now is make time to check in with each other about how you're doing and how you're feeling. Not just about any one thing, but specifically about the situation. How are you coping? Is there anything that's bothering you, either with the two of you in your relationship or in general? What are you worried about? Is there something that you're anxious about? And not just worried about in terms of the relationship. Are you worried about your parents? Is there something about the news that has been getting to you? Is the election coming up bothering you? Are you afraid of something that has happened to your friends? Are you worried about your job? These are all things that you should feel like you can talk to your partner about and that your partner can tell you about. And it is important to make space for that. Because straight talk, ladies and gentlemen, you're not fine. I'm not fine. Nobody is fine right now. We are all struggling. Don't try to put up a brave front. Your partner deserves your honesty, your openness, and your authenticity, and you deserve the same from them. So take time to share how you're feeling, especially what's going on. And as you do, be sure to do so without interruption or judgment, and give them the same space to share their feelings, again, without shame, without an interruption, or without judgment. It is important for people to be able to talk about how they feel, even if it's just a case of wanting to get something off their chest. Not everything is going to be a problem to solve. Sometimes it is just a case of being able to say it and just having it internalized and gnawing on you. Having someone hear you and understand you is incredibly invaluable right now, especially when people are feeling bad about how they feel. Just remember, this time of sharing how you feel with one another and discussing where you are emotionally, it isn't personal, it's not about blaming, it's not about bitching and complaining. You are being open and honest with each other at a time when openness, honesty, and clarity are at their most important. Tip number 7, take time and create opportunities for bonding, intimacy, and romance. Now, please notice very carefully that I said opportunities for bonding, intimacy, and romance. That may or may not involve sex, because as I said, people respond to crises differently. One person may have their sex drive skyrocket, another person may have their sex drive crater. And if the two of you are in one of those moments where your sex drives are suddenly incompatible with one another, then you want to still have the emotion, you still want to have the intimacy, the bonding, and the romance, even if it isn't strictly sexual. But it is important to find times for those moments, those romantic moments, those intimate moments, the longer this crisis goes on. Because it's easy at the start. It is much harder once you're out of the honeymoon period and you're both emotionally exhausted. But those are the times when it is even more important to carve out space for the two of you to come together as a loving couple. Little gestures of kindness and caring are going to be at their most important in those moments. especially when things progress and it's harder to do those bigger, showier romantic gestures. Sometimes little things like giving your partner a shoulder massage after a rough phone call or a Zoom meeting will mean more to them and to your relationship than all the candlelit dinners in the world. The other thing that is important about having these moments is to carve them out yourselves. Make a point of having them. Do not just let them happen. Do not just let it be haphazard. Plan events together. In an ideal world, try to have more than one per week, but at least one per week. This gives you something for the two of you to look forward to, which is important. Having the feeling of there will be something good in the near future makes it much easier to hold on when you're feeling like everything is in the shit and you are clinging to things with your fingernails. And as an added bonus, planning the event and then following through with it creates a sense of control. It gives you a sense of satisfaction, which, as I mentioned before, is important for your emotional health. And it also generates dopamine, which breaks down the stress hormone cortisol. And for that matter, the oxytocin from those moments of romance and intimacy also are generated by touch, by conversation, by that intimacy, by that sex, if you have it, and helps break down the cortisol. And as we're planning events for the weeks ahead, also take time, talk about plans that you're going to have once the quarantine is lifted. And this can be anything from we are going to go out and get a couples massage to I'm going to go to Vegas, you're going to go to the beach. Or we're going to go to our favorite restaurants in alphabetical order. Having things to look forward to when it's all done creates a greater sense of this is temporary, this is going to end someday, and knowing that feeling like that and feeling like you've got a plan for what's going to happen afterwards, that's important. That helps you hang on. It's why in war movies you always see people talk about, yeah, when I get back home, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kiss my girl, get a beer and a hot dog. Granted, they usually get shot, but you know what? War movie, drama. Having things to look forward to makes it much easier to hang on. But when you plan these events, do things that make them special. And sometimes that can be a big thing. Sometimes you may say, want to move the furniture around to create a new space for a date and do something silly like having a candlelit picnic on the carpet in the living room. By moving things around, creating a new space, then you've given yourself this feeling of having gone someplace new. Another option, if you have access to a car and there's a theater in your area that's doing this, go to a drive-in movie. This is a way of doing something romantic, doing something fun that gets you out of the house, and doing something very different while still maintaining social distance, keeping yourself safe and avoiding the chances of infection for you or for other people. Another option, plan a spa night for your partner where you pamper them. Give them a full body massage, wash their hair, give them a full manicure and pedicure. A lot of little things to just let them feel in their body and to relax. And then have them do the same for you another night. But just pick a night where all the focus is on your partner and their needs, their comfort, and let them feel cared for, taken care of, and special. Other times, you can plan something that's going to be very simple. Like, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We are both low energy. We both have very few spoons. So that what we're going to do is we're going to get together in the morning when we're at our most energetic, when we've got the most reserves. We're going to go through all the chores for the day. We're going to do the planning for the week. We're going to get everything out of the way. And then at this specific cutoff time, say 4 o'clock, it's all done. We're going to collapse on the couch. We're going to order takeout. We're going to open a bottle of wine, light some candles, and watch something on the TV, whether it's a movie, a TV show, or whatever, that requires absolutely no mental effort, something utterly mindless, so that the two of you can just give your brains and body a rest by doing nothing and having no expectations of productivity or results. This can sometimes be even more important, more meaningful, and more romantic than having that candlelit dinner, than having that spa night for your partner. Sometimes what you really just need is a moment of peace, of no expectations, and nothing but the simple intimacy of physical touch as the two of you are cuddled together. Because sometimes that's what you need more than anything else. The physical reminder of the two of you being together in the same space at the same time. But what is possibly the most important tip is this final one, tip number 8. Make sure that you're telling the right story about your relationship. Part of what predicts whether couples will fall apart and which ones will stay together during a crisis is the story they tell about their relationship before, during, and after that crisis. Is this crisis something that nearly broke you both apart and you're only still together through the grace of God? Or is this the story of the time that the two of you faced down the storm together? And while, yes, it was a nightmare, yes, it was hard, and there were times it felt like all hope was gone, you worked together as a team to get through it and came out the other side stronger than before. Because, let's be real, this is a storm. This is a crisis. This is not normal. And none of us have ever dealt with something like this before. We are all struggling to get through this. It is just the question of whether this is the stress that breaks us, or whether this is the fire that tempers steel and makes us stronger and more resilient. But I cannot stress enough that it is hard. None of this is going to be easy, and it is going to be harder as it goes on. It will almost get to the point, past the point of endurance, which is why there's one final tip, the most important rule to making love last through the pandemic. Remember what a wise woman once said. It's chaos. Be kind. And now, I want to hear, you've heard from me, so I want to hear from you. Let's take some questions. We'll give it a few minutes to let the questions come in. I will respond to a few of the things in the chat. Send your questions in, and once we've gone through most of them, we will get to the end stage of it. Cool? Cool? Sweet. Let's get that started. Ptolemy, my dad says, do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want? Well, it depends on what you want, because sometimes what people actually want is to be right. But sometimes it's, do you want to be right or do you want to have a relationship? The two are not necessarily always compatible, and like I said, being right is often going to come at the expense of the relationship, and it's going to be cold comfort when you have it. Star Wars news and memes. I've heard that dressing up like you're at work helps out when working from home. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. A lot is going to depend on the job that you have and also how you feel. It takes a surprising amount of emotional energy to work from home during a crisis like this. So sometimes things are going to fall by the wayside, and as a lot of people have discovered, sometimes you're going to end up dressing for comfort and convenience more so than anything else. I mean, there's a reason why sales of bathrobes and sweatpants have gone through the roof, because they're comfy, and sometimes comfort is the most important thing. Now we're going to give a few minutes to catch up because everything works on delay, which I know makes for thrilling broadcast. Greetings from Italy, from Giuseppe Guido. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hi from Italy for yourself. Also, if you're in a couple and you have been dealing with issues during this crisis and you've been resolving it, I want you to share those share those stories in the comments as well, both in the live chat and also in the comments in the replay. I would love to see your stories. I know everybody watching this would love to see them as well. So be sure to share your experiences because we're all in this together, and having a better idea of what's going on and what other people are going through is going to help us as well. Shepard Chandler, counterpoint, pants or Satan's shackles? You know, you're not entirely wrong. Although, to be perfectly honest, and I'm going to be real with you all, I work from home a lot, and one of my joys in life is dressing up, dressing well, dressing stylishly, and it's really fucking hard to do that when you work from home and you or your partner are the only people you're going to see through most of the day. And so that's one of the things that's always weighed on me as being somebody who works primarily from home, because I'm an extrovert who decided to be a writer and a YouTube creator. And oh, that was the wrong decision to make for a career for somebody who needs people for energy. So yeah, having to switching over to sweatpants, or as I like to call them, house pants, because you have house slippers and shoes to wear outside. Well, now I've got house pants and pants I wear outside. That's actually been something of an adjustment that's been taking a lot of getting used to for me, because quite frankly, I really miss going out and dressing well and having a reason to do so. And working in front of my computer for 8 hours a day, there's very few reasons to do so. Star Wars news and memes. Sorry if this was said earlier and I missed it, but what's next week's topic? That one is currently up in the air. We are probably going to be talking a couple of different things. It may or may not be a live show. There is going to be a live Q&A coming up, so there will be that. But after this point, I may be going back to pre-recorded episodes. So we will see where all that goes. That being said, I really enjoy streaming this stuff live and talking to you guys live, so there will be more of these in the future, even after the quarantine is lifted. Loeb Wolf, I don't have a romantic partner, but my closest friend has been helping me with health issues, and it's surprising how many challenges are coming up. We don't usually fight. Yeah, that a lot of what we were talking about today in the stream is also going to be a case of being good roommates with someone who you have a platonic friendship with. There is going to be a lot of cases of right now, you're going to have to do some triage and decide what's important and what can just be overlooked, and stuff that you can just grit your teeth and just kind of ignore or move past, if at all possible, in the name of surviving this and dealing with things and not having a contentious or even hostile roommate relationship in the middle of a time where you can't really find a new place or you can't get a new roommate. And I know we've got a slight delay between when I ask questions and when I say stuff, and then the questions come in the chat. But we're going to take a little bit more time to answer the questions, and then make sure you get yours in. I will try to get to all of them, and then because we've been going for about an hour, we're going to go into the end stage of this. From Giuseppe, I met this girl online. We're both interested in meeting each other after the lockdown, but I'm worried that the interest would fade away if we keep talking on the phone. I covered this a little bit. Actually, I covered this a lot in my in the previous workshop about love, sex, and dating during COVID-19. And you can check the replay on YouTube. It's on the Paging Dr. NerdLove playlist. I will set up a playlist specifically for these workshops. But what you want to do is do more than just talk on the phone. Plan actual dates. Do so by using the tools you have at hand. So using Skype to be in contact with one another while you do other things together. And that may be using, say, Netflix Party to stream the same movie, or to get a little tricky with Discord, because if you tell Discord, hey, doing screen sharing or sharing on Discord, and say, hey, the game that I'm playing isn't recognized. What game are you playing? Well, I'm playing Google Chrome. That is a way that you can then share watching, say, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime with your partner through Discord. You can also play games together. Steam has a lot of tabletop games that have been adapted to online play, and there's also apps like Tabletopia, which also has a metric shitload of classic, new, beloved tabletop games designed for online play. Playing those games together, playing multiplayer games together is also a great date. You can also do things like have Skype on and take virtual tours of museums. You can have Skype on and go to theme parks together, because there are a number of ride-through videos on YouTube that are of extremely high quality, some of which are done in VR style. So if you both have VR helmets, which I realize the odds of are very, very slim, you can even kind of experience them for real, as it were, without leaving your house. And one of the dates I suggested is to cook the same thing at the same time while you're both on Skype together. It's not going to be the same as having dinner together, but it will feel pretty close. Having these dates will make it feel much more like you're having emotional intimacy, even if you can't be together in person, and it will help keep the emotional momentum going. Jay Cortez, dealing with loss of interest and boredom because of too much time together. The way that you deal with that is to find time apart. And some of that may be the two of you going on separate walks, maybe going on runs or exercising at different times or in different places. If you live in an area with parks or running trails that ideally aren't really crowded with people, one of you can go to one, the other can trace a running route through the neighborhood or a walk through the neighborhood. Or, if necessary, do things together but separately. When I was saying earlier about having noise-canceling headphones, that is a way of getting some space when there is physically not a way of getting space from someone. But having your headphones on and reading or watching TV or watching a movie on your phone on the bed while they're on the couch or in the kitchen or in the living room or the patio or what have you, and doing their thing is a way of getting time apart. Same thing with having virtual happy hours, virtual calls with other people. Spending time apart wherever you can, making that space for each other, is part of how you avoid getting each other's grill 24/7 and getting bored with one another. Star Wars News and Memes points out, Jackbox games are good if the two of you are part of a large group. Doesn't work if just a couple. Honestly, I haven't played any of the Jackbox games since literally You Don't Know Jack way back in the 90s. So those are a little bit outside of my experience. A lot of the games that I like playing are stuff like Betrayal at House on the Hill, Carcassonne, a whole lot of classic ones. And one of my favorites are things like Forbidden Desert and Forbidden Island, which now have iPhone apps, or rather iPad apps, which let you play them remotely. All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes for some more questions to trickle in. All right, cool. It does not seem like we've got any more coming in at the moment. If there has been enough of a delay that you haven't been able to get your question in, then hold on to it, because like I said, I will do a relationship Q&A later on, probably next week. I will let you guys know. So if you want to keep up with the latest and know when things are going to be coming up, be sure to follow me on Twitter and join the NerdLove Academy and NerdLove Facebook groups. Those will both keep you updated with what's going to be happening next. Now, since we have come to the end, and it doesn't seem like we have any more questions, don't forget, if you're really enjoying these and you're finding that these workshops are really helping you, if you want to support the channel, then consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/drnerdlove, where even $1 is a huge, huge help that literally helps keeps the lights on. It pays for the internet service, it pays for the equipment, and like I always say, I cannot do this without the support of my patrons. So whether you are a brand new patron or you have just joined me, I appreciate you so very much. Thank you for all that you do. Another way, if you don't necessarily have the scratch to do that, and that is totally fine, Be sure to check out my books. You can see all the books that I have, including my book, It's Dangerous to Go Alone, all about a relationship survival handbook. You can find these all on Amazon as under Harris O'Malley, or you can find them through my website at drnerdlove.com/books. If you do check them out, or if you have a copy and you really like those, then do me a favor. Be sure to rate and review those on Amazon and Goodreads. That is a huge help. That is a way that you can help support things without spending money. Same thing with leaving a review for this on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Dasher, on Dancer, wherever you get your podcasts. Liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, also a big help. And don't forget, if you are having relationship problems that you would need an answer to, be sure to send your questions in. You can send your questions in for inclusion on the Dr. Nerdlove page by using my contact form at drnerdlove.com/contact. If you have a question for the Kotaku column, then you can send that in to doc@drnerdlove.com with Kotaku in the headline. But if you have a question that you need a quick or immediate or private answer to, where you don't want it published, but you still need an answer, then check out my private coaching options. I have a number of options available for helping people with their relationships, between Skype calls, the priority message service, a number of other ones. The priority message option may be exactly what you need, because it is a guaranteed private response just between you and me, does not get published anywhere, that I answer within 24 hours. And as I've said before, I am extending the sign-up period for my upcoming dating workshop, the Dating Accelerator Program. This is an 8-week workshop of weekly call-ins where we talk about where I teach you and your fellow students what to do and what it takes to become a dating Jedi, to unleash your inner Casanova, to take a level in Sexy Badass. This is going to be especially useful when quarantine gets lifted and everybody's going back out into the world again, because there are going to be a lot of stir-crazy people who have got cabin fever and a lot of energy to burn. And people who take this program are going to be primed to be ready for it. Whether you have never dated in your life or whether you have had some dating relationship experience, but you want to get better at it, this is the program for you. Sign-up sheets are available on the NerdLove Academy Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Dr. Nerdlove. Check out the pinned post. There is a link in there that will tell you all about it. And like I've said before, that is a beta test of the program. For the people who sign up for this one, you will be shaping where the program is going in the first place. It will be responsive to the needs of the students, and that will be helping guide where that program goes for everybody who takes it after you. So if you want to be sure to make sure that it meets your needs, now is the time to sign up for it. So, once again, thank you all so much for joining me for this. I really enjoy doing these live streams with you. I really enjoy connecting with you guys. I like hearing from you. I like being able to share this with you guys live. So, as I said, I will definitely be doing a Q&A in the near future. There will the next couple of these. I will let you know how many of these are going to be live streamed. Odds are that I'm probably going back to the pre-recorded ones. But that having been said, if you want to keep up with the latest news, then follow me on Twitter at Dr. Nerdlove. Join the Facebook group NerdLove Academy at facebook.com/groups/Dr. Nerdlove. And as always, check out my other videos, hit the logo to subscribe, and I'll be here with you next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.